about the user's manual for the most complex, most powerful machine you'll ever own, your brain. We're going to dig into how it actually learns, how it rests, and most importantly, how you can use that knowledge to really hit your peak. So let's just start with a question I think we've all asked ourselves at some point. Why is it that some people just seem to pick things up instantly while the rest of us are grinding away? Is it just some kind of natural talent they were born with, or is there something else going on? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating. To get to the bottom of it, let's look at this really cool study from 2006. Researchers took a bunch of surgical residents, doctors learning a super delicate procedure, and they split them into two groups. Now, both groups got the exact same study materials, the same amount of time, everything was identical. But get this, a month later, they tested them, and one group just blew the other one out of the water. Their skills were way sharper, way more precise. So what was the secret? It had nothing to do with studying more. It was all about studying smarter. We'll circle back to exactly what they did, but first we need to understand the hardware they were working with. So here's our game plan. First, we'll crack the brain's basic learning code. Then, we'll get into 3 massive keys for making that information actually stick. After that, we'll take a look at what your brain is doing on the night shift. And finally, we'll get into some real, practical ways to hack your rest for better performance. All right, first up, your brain's learning code. Let's pull back the curtain and see how a brand new piece of info goes from being something you just heard to something you actually know. It pretty much boils down to 3 steps. Step 1, you learn something new, and that memory gets temporarily tagged and stored in a part of your brain called the hippocampus. Step 2, every time you review it, you're firing up the same brain cells, making that connection stronger and stronger. And then step 3, this is the magic part. The knowledge gets consolidated. It moves from temporary storage to the long-term hard drive, the neocortex. And here's the kicker, that final crucial step mostly happens when you're not studying at all, especially when you're fast asleep. Okay, so that's the hardware, but what about the software we're running on it? How do we upgrade our own study methods? That brings us to our second section, 3 keys to retention. So the first big mistake we all make is falling into the passive study trap. You know what I'm talking about, rereading your notes, highlighting half the textbook. It feels productive, right? But it's so misleading. It gives you this false confidence because the answer is right there in front of you. Active studying, like using flashcards or quizzing yourself, is way, way better. It forces your brain to pull that information out of thin air, which gives you a real honest look at what you actually know and what you don't. So really, it all comes down to these 3 powerhouse techniques. There's active recall, which we just talked about, forcing your brain to retrieve info. Then there's interleaving. Instead of blocking out an hour for one subject, you switch between a few different ones. It feels harder, but it forces your brain to work more, strengthening those memories. And finally, the big one, spaced repetition, just spreading your study sessions out over time. Now, when you're trying these active methods, you're gonna get stuff wrong. A lot. But you have to remember, that's not just okay, it's actually a good thing. The struggle to remember an answer, even if you fail, primes your brain. So when you do see the right answer, it sticks so much better. Making mistakes isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature of how we learn. And that brings us to the real secret sauce here. It's the spacing. The time you spend not studying, that offline time, is when your brain is doing some of its most critical work, filing away everything you've just learned. It's not downtime, it's processing time. Which of course leads us right into our next section, the brain's night shift. Because while you think you're just sleeping, your brain is firing on all cylinders, running a whole suite of maintenance programs. You know, a night of sleep isn't just one long snooze. You're actually cycling through different stages. You've got light sleep, sure, but the real heavy lifting happens in deep sleep. That's when your body does most of its physical repairs. And in REM sleep. REM sleep is critical for your brain. It's for emotional recovery and, you guessed it, for consolidating all those memories. And man, the difference between a rested brain and a sleep-deprived one is just stark. A rested brain locks in memories and keeps your emotions in check. A sleep-deprived brain, it can barely form new memories, your emotional center, the amygdala, goes completely haywire, and your judgment and coordination get so bad that it's literally comparable to being drunk. So if there's one number